Okay. In childhood, because the infant is helpless, it creates a false identification with the mother. I and the mother are one. And its love is united with a need for her presence. And so when the mother is gone, the baby will scream, and she better come really quick or the baby will be traumatized. And there's a gradual, age-appropriate way that the mother will wean the child from that neediness. But it will have internalized the mother as a superego. And the mother's voice will remain in its mind for a long time thereafter, as long as the ego construct remains. The ego mind is split into ego and superego. Eventually, as the child grows older and it recognizes the relation of the mother and the father, assuming there's a relatively healthy couple relationship, there will be a paternal superego voice added onto that as well. Hopefully they are in harmony and on the same page. These days that's rarely the case. And so you get another conflict between two different voices giving you different commands. And so there's a dissociation within the ego structure with not only the two superego parents, but there's a difference between what the parents say and what the parents do, right? And so they'll say, do as I say, not as I do, but the superego forms that say, do as I do, will also be there. So there will be this increasing split within the ego of which do I follow, what either of them says or what both of them are doing, or my own child ego self-image that is needy of their love and their approval, that then tries to compromise and work out ways of getting the approval of all of these different forces and voices, which becomes impossible and leads to an internal chaos. So the development of one's emotional wholeness requires at a certain point that need and demand are overcome by real desire, which is the desire to know oneself and the desire to be free of the ego complex that was only there as a kind of larval stage of emotional development so long as you needed parents. Now, as soon as your body becomes chronologically adult and you're able to take care of yourself as an adult, which in traditional societies is around age 13 or so, right? You should go through a process of ego death. That's what the rite of passage and the vision quest in all of the traditional societies was about. You would drop your ego, you would get a new name, usually from God or from shamanic ordeal that you'd go through. But the whole ego complex with all those superego voices would drop away, and now it would be your soul and your connection to God that would then be your vehicle through life as an adult. That no longer happens. There's no rite of passage in capitalist society. People are deliberately kept as children psychologically throughout their lives so they can be controlled. There's very few adults. Look among the politicians in the world. Do you see any adults there? Very few. And very few in any of the fields of supposedly adult endeavor. And so there's no wisdom. There's no real role models of guidance. So we have to, on our own then, go through a private rite of passage in which we drop the ego and give our love entirely to the real self, and then unite with that real self and realize what we are, which is bodiless, formless presence that is timeless and immortal and eternal and is non-narcissistic. It's egoless. And is able to live in joy and bliss and in recognition and unconditional love for all that is. It's also able to unite that love with the practical need for law and order and coherence and division of labor in a community and in a hierarchy of wisdom and maturity and responsibility, so that there can be a functioning of the community in accord with those who have reached those levels that they can be responsible for certain kinds of communal functions, are the ones who are appointed to those positions, not those who aren't ready for it. So the community has to function as a wisdom school and to mature those who are in it to gain the power to be able to serve at ever higher levels of bodhisattvahood and Buddhahood that they are able to actually sustain internally and authentically. And that's the why the establishment of healthy communities that are based on truth and on love and on virtue and on the realization of the real nature of being is so necessary. So your love has to be love for that and for manifesting that. And that requires letting go of everything that isn't in harmony with God consciousness. That's our ultimate love. And that brings us the gifts of grace, of wisdom, of joy, of peace. Everything else comes from that attainment of the real self. So I hope that answers your question. Okay? But that's our developmental trajectory when we are truly serving our true nature. Okay.
Thank you. Just one follow-up question. Is there any time that the soul feels, or the soul has the need to grieve, or like, like kind of its choice to fall asleep and not being awakened, or is like grief and all these things more on the ego's level?
Yeah, grief is always an egoic reaction to loss. And it's a transition that one has to go through as part of the rite of passage. You have to grieve the death of your own ego before it is achieved, okay? And everything that your ego was attached to, including the superego voices and including all the command system of the family and the role you were supposed to play and all of that gave you an identity as an ego. All of that has to be let go of. And there is a grieving that goes with that. But the grief soon turns to joy and bliss as soon as you realize what you're getting in exchange for being willing to go through ego death.